Welcome to the Bullvine Podcast, where cutting-edge tech meets dairy farm reality. Today, we're tackling the $500 day question. How are innovative farmers financing robotic milkers without going bankrupt? In episode 220, we'll unpack the shocking $160,000 annual profit difference between robot rookies and pros, Europe's pay-per-liter financing model now hitting North America, why 85% of Danish dairies automate while 45% of North American farms still use tie stalls.
All right, welcome back to the deep dive. We're always talking to folks in the industry, and one thing keeps bubbling to the surface: the crunch of labor. Finding good help is tougher than a $2 steak, and the costs just keep climbing. So naturally, everyone's eyeing automation, especially those shiny robotic milkers. But then the cold shower hits. You're looking at $150,000 to $230,000 per robot. That's enough to make a grown dairy farmer weep into their coffee.
It is. It's a figure that certainly gets your attention, right? And for many, it can feel like a roadblock the size of a silage pile. But what's fascinating when you dig into the numbers is how the financial picture surrounding this technology has been shifting. It's not just about needing a mountain of cash up front anymore. The landscape has become much more nuanced.
Exactly. So for all of you tuning in, whether you're seriously kicking the tires on robotic milking or just want to get a handle on the financial realities, this deep dive is tailor-made for you. We've wrestled with the data, explored the financing avenues, and looked at real-world scenarios to bring you a clearer understanding of how this investment can actually pencil out.
And we've got a packed agenda. We're going to get down to brass tacks on the real return on investment, the clever ways farms are funding these systems, everything from deals with the manufacturers themselves to leasing and even government incentives. We'll also shine a light on some of the less obvious financial wins, like the positive impacts on the environment and cow health.
Yeah, and performance too, right?
Oh, absolutely. Plus, we'll dissect what makes a robot a top performer versus just another piece of equipment, flag some potential headaches to avoid, track where robot adoption is heading, and map out that crucial transition phase. So, grab your favorite beverage. We've got a lot to get through.
Okay, let's dive right into the big question: the ROI on these robotic systems. Because let's face it, shelling out that kind of money needs to deliver a solid return, right? As we mentioned, you're looking at $150,000 to $230,000 per robot. And typically one robot handles around 60 cows. That's a significant chunk of change to wrap your head around.
No question. That initial investment is a major hurdle. But here's a key insight. Let's look at how that cost has changed over time in relation to other expenses, particularly our old friend labor. What's really interesting is that back in 2004, a robotic milker would have set you back around $250,000.
Yeah, okay.
Fast forward to 2010, and that price had dropped to roughly $220,000. It's a 12% decrease in just 6 years. Now get this. During that exact same period, labor costs also rose by 12%. So the core insight here isn't just that robots are expensive, but that the relative cost is shifting in their favor, making them a more economically viable long-term solution for labor challenges.
Huh. That puts a whole different spin on it. So while the sticker price is still, eye-watering, comparatively speaking, these robots are becoming less of a financial stretch when you factor in the ever-increasing cost of good farm hands. That definitely recalibrates the long-term math.
It does indeed. And when we delve into some of the key performance indicators, the KPIs, that shift when a farm transitions to robotic milking systems or RMS, the financial advantage has become even clearer. We're seeing an average jump in milk yield of around 8.66%.
Almost 9%, okay.
Yeah. Now, naturally, the investment cost itself goes up by about 58%, which is expected, right? You're acquiring a substantial piece of equipment. Energy consumption also sees an average rise of roughly 37%, and feed costs increase slightly, around 1.33%.
Okay.
But the real story is the labor input.
The big one.
The big one. It experiences a significant drop of about 27.84%.
Hold the phone. Only a 1.33% bump in feed costs for almost a 9% increase in milk production. That's surprisingly efficient. You'd figure those cows would be hitting the feed bunk nonstop to pump out that extra milk.
That's precisely what stands out. The key takeaway isn't just about higher milk production, but that the efficiency of milk production seems to improve with robotic systems. The cows are being milked more frequently, likely at times that better suit their natural rhythms, leading to a more effective conversion of feed into milk.
Makes sense.
And then you layer on that nearly 28% reduction in labor. In today's environment, where finding and keeping reliable help feels like chasing your hat in a hurricane, that labor saving is a massive, massive draw.
You're not kidding. Every dairy farmer I've talked to lately puts labor right at the top of their list of headaches. So a potential 28% decrease in that area. Wow, that's a game changer for many operations. Do we have any real world examples of these numbers playing out on a farm?
Absolutely. We can look at the experience of Dave Camel, a dairy producer in Wisconsin. He's been running 2 robots for his herd of around 105 cows for the past 7 years, and he considers it one of the smartest investments he's ever made. He estimates it frees up about 3 hours of labor every single day compared to his previous parlor system.
3 hours a day? Just think about what you could do with that extra time. More focus on herd management, maybe tackling that backlog of paperwork.
Or maybe even a few guilt-free minutes with the family, right?
Yeah, imagine that. Okay, so the ROI picture is looking brighter than just that initial price tag. But how are folks actually finding the funds to make this happen? Let's dive into these creative money moves we've heard about.
Right. The manufacturers themselves have seen that initial financial hurdle and have become quite innovative in offering financing solutions. Take Lely, for instance. They've teamed up with DLL Finance to create specialized financing packages specifically for their robotic systems. And here's where it gets really interesting. They sometimes roll out promotional deals, like 0% financing for 60 months for new customers.
Whoa, 0% for 5 years? That almost sounds too good to be true. Are other manufacturers stepping up with similar deals?
Yeah, GEA, with their, shall we say, blue-hued robots, offers comparable financing options with terms that can extend up to 84 months, 7 years. That longer repayment window can certainly make the monthly costs more manageable for some operations. Julie Nunakovan from DLL points out that they've been specializing in robot financing for nearly 2 decades, which really speaks to their experience and deep understanding of the dairy sector's unique financial needs. They were among the early pioneers in this field.
So going directly through the manufacturer or their finance partners seems like a savvy first step. Explore potential deals, see what kind of tailored packages they can put together. But what if those options don't quite align with a farm's financial situation? We've heard that leasing is becoming a key strategy for many.
Leasing has definitely emerged as a powerful strategy, particularly for farms looking to preserve their upfront capital. Industry data suggests that leasing can potentially reduce your initial capital outlay by anywhere from 15 to 25%.
Wow, that's significant.
It is. That's a significant chunk of change that stays in your pocket. We even have a real-world example from Wisconsin. A family farm put down just $30,000 on a $200,000 robotic system through an operating lease. Their monthly payments work out to around $3,800 over a 7-year period. For many farms, that kind of predictable monthly expense, especially when coupled with the anticipated increase in milk production, can be much easier to budget for than a large initial investment.
That makes a lot of sense. It's almost like you're renting the technology, but you're still reaping all the benefits in terms of production and reduced labor. And at the end of the lease, you typically have options, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
You often have the flexibility to upgrade to a newer system, extend the lease agreement, or sometimes even purchase the equipment at a predetermined price. And then there's another really intriguing model that's starting to gain traction, particularly in Europe, and now making its way to North America. The pay-per-liter model.
Pay-per-liter, huh? That sounds like it could be a good way to manage cash flow. How does that structure work exactly?
Well, instead of having fixed monthly payments, your payments fluctuate based on the actual volume of milk your cows produce. This model originated in Europe, which, as our sources indicate, often seems to be, ahead of the curve when it comes to these kinds of innovative financial solutions.
They often are.
But it is starting to gain a foothold in North America. The real advantage here is that your payments are directly linked to your income. So during that initial transition period when your cows might be adjusting to the robots and milk production could be a bit variable, your payments adjust accordingly, offering a built-in safety net for your cash flow.
That sounds like a fantastic way to ease into the technology, especially in those early days when you're still getting the hang of things. It must take some of the pressure off knowing your payments are tied to your actual output.
It does. Matt Line, a DLL customer down in Southwest Victoria, who recently integrated Lely robots into his operation, found that exploring various financing avenues, including leasing and the potential for a pay-per-liter type arrangement, was instrumental in finding a solution that really aligned with his specific business objectives and financial capacity.
Interesting.
And interestingly, Matt was relatively new to the dairy sector. And Lely Finance took a holistic approach, considering his existing farm assets, his previous business experience, and his projections for growth. This really highlights that manufacturers and finance companies are often willing to look beyond just traditional financial history when it comes to these significant investments.
Okay, so we've covered some really interesting and diverse ways to finance these robotic systems. Good stuff. But it's not just about the immediate financial returns, is it? There are other potential benefits that can have a significant financial impact down the line. I was particularly interested in the environmental edge that our sources mentioned.
This is a real eye-opener for me as well. It turns out that robotic milking can contribute significantly to reducing a farm's carbon footprint. The example of the Devon dairy farmer in the UK is quite compelling. After transitioning to robotic milkers, his farm's carbon footprint dropped from 1,369 grams per liter of milk down to 12,204 grams per liter in just a single year.
Wow.
That's a substantial reduction, equivalent to taking 13 round-trip flights off the table. And it was even lower than his 2011 level of 1,729 grams per liter. So the key takeaway isn't just robots are greener, but that this translates to a potential competitive advantage in a market increasingly valuing sustainability.
Wow, that's a pretty dramatic decrease. How does robotic milking actually lead to such a significant drop in a farm's carbon footprint? Is it just efficiency?
It's largely a combination of factors, driven by increased efficiency. In the Devon example, his milk yield saw a remarkable 30% jump from 5,700 to 8,198 liters per cow per year, while maintaining similar feed rates, around 0.34 kilos per liter. Impressive. As one farmer succinctly put it to researchers at the University of Waterloo, robotic systems empower you to produce more milk with fewer cows. This naturally means you're milking fewer animals, feeding fewer animals, breeding fewer animals, which all adds up to less manure and a reduced need for acreage for feed production.
Fewer inputs leading to the same or even greater output. That definitely sounds like a recipe for a lower environmental impact and potentially significant cost savings in the long run, too.
Exactly. And some of the newer robotic systems even incorporate battery-powered components, which can lead to lower electricity consumption. Furthermore, the more precise nutrient management that often accompanies robotic systems can mean farmers find they can potentially manage with smaller manure storage facilities due to more efficient resource utilization. In a world where sustainability is becoming increasingly important, not just ethically, but from consumer demand and evolving regulations, this environmental advantage can translate into a real competitive edge and potential cost savings down the road.
Absolutely. Consumers are increasingly seeking out sustainably produced goods, and regulations surrounding environmental impact are likely to become more stringent. Farms that can demonstrate a lower carbon footprint might find themselves in a much stronger market position in the years to come. Okay, so better for the planet, potentially better for the bottom line. Now, what about the actual performance of the robots themselves? Because simply installing one isn't a guarantee of massive success, is it? There's got to be a difference between a robot that's humming along efficiently and one that's just there.
That's a critical point. Our sources highlight that the financial difference between an average and an excellent performing robot setup can be in the ballpark of $500 per robot per day.
Per day.
Per day. Let that number sink in for a moment. $500 every single day.
Holy Holstein, that's a massive swing. What are the key factors that differentiate an average performing robot from one that's really knocking it out of the park financially?
It largely boils down to efficiency in the milking process itself. The data shows that a farm with lower efficiency might see around 1.40 kilograms of milk produced per minute of milking time, whereas a higher efficiency farm could be achieving 2.0 kilograms per minute. That's a 42.9% difference.
Okay, so faster milking.
Yeah. Over a typical 24-hour period with roughly 11,180 minutes of potential milking time per robot, that difference translates to a daily production potential of 1,650 kilograms for the lower efficiency farm compared to a whopping 2,360 kilograms for the higher efficiency one. That's a difference of 710 kilograms of milk every single day.
And that translates to?
And that's where that estimated $500 daily revenue difference comes into play, which could lead to an annual profit potential difference of over $160,000 per robot. So it's not just about buying the robot, it's about how well it's managed and optimized.
$160,000 a year just from maximizing performance. That's the kind of figure that really makes you sit up and take notice. So it's not just about the initial investment or the financing, it's about squeezing every last drop of potential out of that investment.
Precisely. And the research backs this up. Studies from Minnesota have shown a 9.3% increase in milk production compared to conventional parlors. Iowa studies reported a 12% increase.
Wow.
And some producers in New Zealand have even documented increases in milk solids of up to 50%. Now, while those extreme numbers might not be typical for every farm, the general trend is a significant 5–10% increase in milk yield after making the switch to robotic milking, with some farms seeing jumps from around 7,000 to 9,000 liters per cow annually. And often that increased production goes hand in hand with improved milk quality, which can potentially command higher prices from processors.
So performance truly is paramount. It's not just about having the technology, it's about leveraging it effectively. Now, another aspect that really grabbed my attention was the impact on cow health. We all know that healthy cows are happy and productive cows, but how do robots specifically contribute to improved animal well-being?
This is one of the more compelling and perhaps often underestimated benefits of robotic milking, that Devon farmer we mentioned earlier. He not only saw a drop in his carbon footprint, but also experienced some remarkable improvements in his herd's health. His use of intramammary tubes per cow dropped significantly, from 1.83 down to 1.02. His conception rate saw a healthy jump from 32% up to 42%.
A 10% jump. Nice.
Yeah, and his calving interval was reduced from 427 days down to 401 days. These are significant improvements in key reproductive and health metrics that directly impact profitability.
Those are definitely metrics that get any dairy farmer's attention. So what's the direct link between the robots and these positive changes in cow health?
Well, a significant factor, according to a March 2024 University of Waterloo case study, is the reduced stress levels in the cows. With voluntary milking, the cows have the freedom to choose when they want to be milked, rather than being herded into a holding pen at a parlor at set times throughout the day.
Less pressure.
Exactly. Additionally, the real-time monitoring capabilities through computer vision and various sensors allow for much earlier detection of potential health issues. As one tech company representative put it, cows and robotic systems tend to live longer and experience less stress compared to the traditional parlor environment. They're also typically milked more frequently, which can be beneficial for overall udder health.
That makes perfect sense. A less stressed cow is undoubtedly going to be a healthier and more productive cow in the long run. And I can certainly imagine that the constant movement and sometimes crowded conditions of a traditional milking parlor can be quite stressful for some animals.
Absolutely. The representative even noted a visible difference in the demeanor of the cows in robotic barns. They often tend to be quieter and much calmer, almost exhibiting like pet-like behavior, sometimes even approaching people without hesitation. Yeah. In contrast, in a parlor setting, cows might be more skittish when people enter the barn because they associate it with being moved to the parlor. These improved health outcomes translate directly into financial benefits for the farm. Lower veterinary costs, enhanced reproductive efficiency, and longer, more productive lifespans for the cows in the herd.
So healthier cows not only mean better animal welfare, which is, a priority for all good dairy farmers, but also a healthier bottom line through reduced vet bills and increased milk production over a longer period. That's a pretty powerful combination of benefits. But, as the old saying goes, if something sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Are there instances where robotic milking systems don't live up to these promises?
It's absolutely crucial to maintain a realistic perspective, and our sources do include a cautionary tale that serves as an important reminder. A former robotic dairy farmer who invested in the technology way back in 2007.
Okay, early adopter.
Yeah, very early. He didn't experience the typical benefits over his 12 to 13 years of using the system. In fact, he calculated that the robots actually increased his costs per liter of milk for both maintenance, about 4.5 cents a liter, and feed, another 2.5 cents a liter, and his labor costs remained essentially unchanged.
Ouch. That's a stark contrast to the success stories we've been hearing. What do you think went wrong in his particular situation?
Well, he acknowledged that he was likely working with some of the earlier generations of the technology, and there were undoubtedly some growing pains associated with that. But importantly, he also took some responsibility himself, suggesting that his management practices might have played a role in the lack of success. This really underscores the fact that you can't simply install robots and expect instant, effortless success. A successful implementation demands a well-thought-out strategy, meticulous planning, comprehensive training for both the cows and the farm staff, and, crucially, a willingness to adapt and fine-tune your management practices to fully optimize the system. The investment extends beyond just the physical hardware. It crucially includes investing in the knowledge and expertise to utilize the technology effectively.
That's a really vital point to emphasize. It's not just about the machine itself, it's about how you integrate it into the entire fabric of your farm operation and having the right know-how to manage it properly. Okay, so while there are potential pitfalls and it's not a guaranteed slam dunk, the overall trend seems to be pointing towards increased adoption of this technology. What does the data tell us about where things are heading?
The adoption of dairy robotics is definitely on an upward trajectory, no doubt about it. In Ontario alone, the number of farms utilizing them more than doubled between 2016 and 2021, jumping from 337 to 715 farms.
Doubled in 5 years?
Yeah. The livestock sector is now leading the way in agricultural robotics adoption right across Canada. And on a global scale, the market is substantial and growing at a rapid pace. It reached a value of $2.98 billion in 2024 and is projected to hit $3.39 billion this year. That's a significant 14% increase in just 1 year.
14%?
Yeah. And by 2029, market forecasts estimate a value of around $6.03 billion. Those are some serious growth numbers, indicating a strong and increasing interest in this technology worldwide.
Those are some impressive growth figures. So while it might still feel like a relatively new or niche technology to some folks here in North America, the global trend is clearly moving towards greater automation in the dairy sector.
Absolutely. And what's particularly striking is the comparison with adoption rates in other parts of the world. In Denmark, for example, over 85% of all new dairy facility constructions are now incorporating robotic milking systems.
85% of new builds. Wow.
Yeah, that's a massive difference compared to North America, where a recent National Dairy Farm Program survey indicated an adoption rate of only around 3%, with a significant percentage of farms, 45.4%, still operating with traditional tie stall systems. This gap really highlights a substantial opportunity for early adopters here to gain a significant competitive advantage in the years to come.
Huge opportunity.
Huge. We're already seeing numerous success stories on this side of the Atlantic, like Hinchley Dairy Farm in the U.S., and the Elliott Family Farm, which operates with an impressive 20 Delaval robots, both reporting significant increases in production and substantial reductions in labor costs.
So while North America might be somewhat behind the curve compared to places like Denmark, the potential for growth and the tangible benefits being realized by those who have already embraced the technology are undeniable. Now, for those dairy farmers who are seriously contemplating making this leap, what does the transition period typically look like? Because I can't imagine it's as simple as just uncrating a robot and having everything run smoothly from day one.
No, definitely not. The research from the University of Waterloo suggests that achieving full profitability with dairy robotics can take up to 4 years. That's a crucial piece of information to factor into your long-term financial planning. The initial upfront costs can be considerable, especially if you need to undertake significant barn retrofits or infrastructure upgrades to properly accommodate the robotic system.
Right, the barn itself.
Exactly. As one tech company representative pointed out, in regions like Ontario and Quebec, a large number of dairy farms still have existing tie stall barns, which often necessitate major renovations or even entirely new building construction to integrate robotic milking effectively. That's a big additional cost.
4 years to reach full profitability is a significant time frame. So it's absolutely vital for farmers to develop a realistic and robust financial plan that can withstand that initial investment period and any potential unforeseen challenges along the way.
Exactly. And it's also important to recognize that these necessary upgrades and new construction projects do generate positive economic activity in other sectors. Barn builders, agricultural engineers, farm design consultants, you name it. Julie Nunakoven from DLL offers a valuable piece of advice. She recommends starting the financing conversation early in the process, potentially even 2 years before you anticipate beginning construction.
2 years before? Wow.
Yeah, this allows ample time to thoroughly explore all available financing options and develop a comprehensive and well-structured financial strategy for the transition. Less stress later on.
That early planning definitely sounds like a key ingredient for a successful and, less stressful transition. So to bring everything together, what's the core message you'd want to leave with anyone listening who's currently on the fence about exploring dairy robotics for their farm?
The central message, I think, is this. Delaying the exploration of robotic milking might actually mean leaving money on the table in the long run. The costs of the technology itself are showing a downward trend, generally speaking, while the expenses associated with labor continue their upward climb, making the overall financial equation increasingly favorable for automation.
The math is changing.
The math is changing. We heard about the Ontario farmer who wisely started with just 2 robots for his herd of 110 cows as a way to gradually get comfortable with the technology and refine his management practices before considering further expansion. Adopting this kind of phased approach can be a smart way to mitigate initial risks and learn as you go. Alex Hucker-Stewart from DLL emphasizes that understanding and strategically addressing that initial investment hurdle is paramount, and there is a growing range of accessible financing options available, often with tailored repayment structures designed to meet the specific needs of dairy farms. So it's no longer just a futuristic concept. Robotic milking is rapidly evolving into a strategic investment for the long-term sustainability and viability of dairy farming operations.
Yeah. So the fundamental question for each listener really boils down to this. Is now the right time for you to seriously explore your robot financing options? Have you already begun considering making the leap, or have you perhaps already taken that plunge into the world of robotic milking?
Precisely. It's about looking ahead, anticipating the future challenges and opportunities in the dairy industry, and strategically positioning your farm for long-term success.
Absolutely. So to recap our deep dive into dairy robot financing today, we've uncovered that while the initial investment is significant, the potential for substantial gains in milk production and significant savings in labor costs are very real and increasingly compelling. The emergence of creative and flexible financing options, ranging from manufacturer-backed deals to innovative leasing programs and even pay-per-liter models, is making this technology more accessible to a wider range of farms than ever before.
And beyond the direct financial returns, we've also explored the noteworthy environmental and cow health benefits that can contribute to long-term sustainability and profitability. Healthier cows, smaller footprint.
Right. However, as we've learned, optimizing the performance of robotic systems through diligent management and operator expertise is crucial for achieving the best possible financial outcomes. It's not automatic, and a well-thought-out transition plan that realistically accounts for initial costs and that a multi-year path to profitability is absolutely essential.
Crucial. And the global trend towards robotic adoption is accelerating rapidly, presenting a considerable opportunity for North American dairy farmers to gain a valuable competitive edge in the evolving landscape of the dairy industry.
Definitely an opportunity there.
And we strongly encourage you, our listeners, to carefully consider everything we've discussed today in the context of your own farm's unique circumstances and long-term goals. Think about whether proactively exploring these financing options and the potential benefits of robotic milking aligns with your vision for the future of your dairy operation.
We'd genuinely love to hear your thoughts and experiences regarding dairy robots and the various financing strategies you've encountered or utilized. Please feel free to reach out and share your insights. Let's keep this important conversation going within the dairy community. We've also compiled some Learn More resources that delve deeper into specific aspects we've touched on today.
Yeah, good stuff in there.
Covering everything from crucial financial considerations and strategies for maximizing dairy farm efficiency to a closer look at the robotic milking revolution, the often hidden aspects of ROI, benefits beyond just milking, and the critical importance of ongoing maintenance. These resources are there for you to explore the topics that are most relevant to your operation in greater detail.
And finally, as you reflect on all of this information, consider the broader future of dairy farming. Automation is clearly poised to play an increasingly pivotal role. What will your farm's place be in this dynamic and evolving landscape? What is your long-term strategy for embracing technological advancements and ensuring the continued sustainability and success of your dairy operation in the years to come?
Some truly important questions for all of us in the dairy industry to be pondering. Thanks for tuning in to this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.
That's our deep dive into dairy robot financing. From 0% manufacturer deals to the 4-year profitability timeline every farmer needs to know. Got a robot success story? Tag us at The Bullvine. We'll feature the best insights in our May roundup. For show notes and full financial tables, visit www.thebullvine.com.